Welcome everybody to the global virtual book launch of The Curious Cat and The Secrets of Time with author Maia Simpson and illustrator Deborah Keeley. So we'll have an introduction to the Healer Sustainability Storytelling series, then we'll have an authors and illustrators in introduction and speech. Thereafter, we'll move on to the book reading, book discussion with the audience Q&A. So our Healer Sustainability Storytelling series really focuses on eco-literacy across all educational stages, from early years to post-secondary, and our collection of inclusive books integrates environmental themes into engaging narratives. Maia, over to you.
Hi, my name is Maia and I'm a 17-year-old sixth form student from Haberdashers Hatcham College. And honestly, it was never my dream to write a book, as English was always a subject I struggled with. However, writing this children's book has been one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I've had so much support throughout the experience. The book is about a curious cat called Jasper, who was inspired by my childhood cat, who was always very adventurous and loved to follow us to the park and walk with us to school. So he just fit the character I wanted to portray perfectly. And in my book, Jasper travels back in time, meeting new friends, such as Pip the red squirrel and Luna the fox, to emphasize the different animals you may have found or currently find in Telegraph Hill. Through meeting these new friends, Jasper discovers some of the history Telegraph Hill has, working together with his new friends to find a way back to his own time. I did this because it aimed at teaching children the value of teamwork, as well as an appreciation for the environment. As Annam said before, I wrote this book as a part of work experience with STEMpoint as a part of their research STEM program. And then through that program, I did a placement with Heal Earth. And my placement with Heal Earth was about the restoration science in our local area and doing research into our local area's biodiversity and history. This research that I did was essential for making informed decisions about my characters and the development of my book storyline, as I wanted to incorporate historical and ecological context into my book while keeping it engaging for a young audience. As a part of my primary research, I interviewed my grandma, Anne Simpson, who is one of the founders of Telegraph Hill Conservation Area. And I also went around Telegraph Hill photographing different plants and animal species so that I could identify them, making the book as accurate as possible. This whole experience has been amazing and so surreal. As I said before, it was never in my wildest dreams that I was expecting to write a book. But I've loved every minute of it and hope that my book can help engage children with nature, as well as encourage a discussion between parents and their children about their local environment and what they can do to protect it.
Brilliant. Well done, Maia. Thank you so much for this. Now we'll hear from Deborah Keeley, who's the illustrator of the book.
Sorry, I had to work out how to turn my mic on. So Maia contacted me during the process of writing her book, asking me to do the illustrations. I did train as an illustrator when I was a lot younger, and she was very clear about what she wanted in the book and gave me lots of feedback and support in the illustrations. She specifically wanted it to be not in colour, so we worked on sort of the medium that would best suit the book that she's written, including some photos of her cat Jasper. So the illustration is as accurate as I could make it for Jasper, and also a photograph of her nan Anne, who is included in the book on the last illustration, and that is also as accurate as I could make it. I also did a little bit of sort of research online for the different animal characters and tried to make them as child friendly as I could. That's it.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the author book reading. Off to you, Maia.
Jasper is a curious cat who enjoys playing with other animals. One day he gets bored of his garden, so he decides to go on an adventure. He goes to Telegraph Hill Park, where he knows there'll be lots of other animal friends he can play with. When Jasper gets to the park, he sees Barry and Hazel, two grey squirrels who love to play hide and seek. "Jasper, it's great to see you. Do you want to come and play hide and seek with me and Hazel?" says Barry excitedly as he runs down the hornbeam tree to meet Jasper. "Yes, that sounds like fun," replies Jasper, happy that he has found friends to play with so quickly. Barry starts counting and Hazel runs off into the distance, likely going to her favourite hiding spot in the bushes next to the slide. Jasper heads off towards the pond where he knows there are many trees that he could hide behind. Just past the pond, Jasper sees a hollowed out ash tree. With a big smile on his face, he climbs inside. It was the perfect hiding spot. Suddenly, everything changes. Looking out of the ash tree, Jasper no longer sees the park. Instead, he sees fields with fruits and vegetables. Confused, Jasper leaves the ash tree to explore. Walking around the hill, Jasper sees some small farmhouses and even more vegetable fields. Yuck. But Jasper can't see any of the normal streets with rows of Victorian houses, and he can't find his friends. So he goes to the top of the hill to try and see if he can spot anything he recognises. When he gets to the top of the hill, there is a tiny house with something weird and big on its roof. Jasper then sees a red squirrel approaching him.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for this, Maya. So we'll move on to the book discussion and the audience Q&A. Is there anything that you wanted to add further about the book? Actually, I've got a question for you, Maya. What was the process like for you? Because you were working on a placement, so you were doing some scientific research and then sort of turning it into a story. How did that feel? And what kind of steps did you take to turn some of the scientific research that you were doing into a story?
It was quite difficult at first because there was a lot of information out there when I was doing the research, and there was I had to read through a lot of the council things and the reports that they've done from Lewisham Council. But once I'd kind of gotten into the rhythm of writing the book, it was so much fun, and the characters just kind of flowed onto the page, which was really nice. And it was nice to try and create a way for children to engage with the local environment of Telegraph Hill, because a lot of the time I think that children don't necessarily know much of the history about their local area, because I definitely didn't know a lot of the stuff that I found out when I was doing this project. So that was really interesting, and I definitely wanted to try and include as much of that as I can whilst also making it engaging, which was probably the hard bit about writing the book.
Fantastic. You did a really brilliant job. Well done. And now we'll open up the floor to for the audience Q&A. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Can I ask you a question, Maya?
Yeah.
Why did you particularly want the illustrations in black and white?
Well, I thought it would be really good for primary school kids, because they can engage with it more in the fact that they could probably recreate some of the drawings and sketches and things in their own way, which I thought would be really nice and might be a really sweet idea.
Fantastic. Do we have any more Q&As? I've got a question whilst we wait for everybody. Oh, okay, we've got a question from Aya Apara. Absolutely amazing, Maya. Are you thinking of writing a sequel? Thank you for the question.
I love the fact that this book could have a potential sequel, and I would probably love to write that in the future, because I think it's how I ended the book, especially gives it the opportunity to have more stuff about it and for Jasper to go to different places and maybe learn about the history there and stuff, which I think is really interesting and also might be a really cool idea for me to do in the future. So yes, I would probably definitely say I'm thinking about writing a sequel.
Fantastic. And brilliant. Thank you. And what was the process like, having the story that you wanted to write, and then sort of thinking about the illustrations and going to Deborah to sort of communicate, you know, the kind of concept that you had in mind? What was that like?
The process was, I would say, like quite complicated, but also in some ways quite simple, because I did like a lot of research at first about Telegraph Hill, and from like with the research like placement that we were doing, we were doing a legacy report. So I knew from the start that I wanted to write a children's book, because when we were talking about the legacy reports, that's what I found most interesting, especially for my area, where I think a lot of the information available isn't really as accessible to children. And I think it's really important for our future generations to learn about all of this stuff and make connections with nature. And then, so what I did was, after doing all of the research, I tried to incorporate as much of, like, I tried to really think about what history parts would be most interesting for children and what I wanted to showcase in the book, as well as what animals and creatures like Jasper might meet, to try and showcase some of the different biodiversity, but also make it so that the animals and species I was talking about are actually relatively known to children as well, because I didn't want to make it overly complicated, but I also wanted to highlight certain different species. So one of the things I did was like go around and take photographs and things of like the different trees, so that when I was talking about a tree in the book, or like named a tree that they were going to, it was actually in the place it is in Telegraph Hill Park, so that if a child, say, was interested in the book and actually wanted to go see it, it's actually true to the park. So that was one of the processes that I did. And then the other process was taking photographs of those and sending them to Deborah so that she could illustrate them in the amazing way that she has, which has brought the book to life. So yeah, that was what I did.
Brilliant. And it sounds like a really thorough process as well, you know, with the research and the communications and all the different skills that you sort of put into this. We have a question from Rebecca. What was the biggest challenge, and can I buy a copy for Miss Ryan's little boy?
I would say that the biggest challenge was trying to make sure that like the language I was using was not too complicated, but also was like trying to develop certain parts of their vocabulary, like in certain like ways and things like that. But at the same time, trying to make it like a children's book rather than say I was writing it for school or something. So that was one of the things I found really difficult, and I definitely had to do a lot of research about how children's books are written and what's like really important in a children's book, to highlight like how like character development is so important, and like different making the characters not only like emotionally like accessible to like younger people, but also making them so that they're kind of like aspirational in a way, which is what I really tried to do with Jasper, because I wanted children to be curious and adventurous when it came to nature, but as well as considerate. So that I would say was my biggest challenge. And yes, you can definitely buy a copy. It will be on Amazon, or is on Amazon already.
I'll just put a link on there. So we've got a couple more questions. One from Nicola. How did you choose which sections you wanted illustrated?
After I had like written each chapter, I kind of like asked myself where I would be most interested in seeing an image, or like what I would want to portray. So that was like how I decided on the images, was because when I was reading through the book, the places where I put images are where I was like, oh, I really want them to be able to see that and to visualize that. So that was really important to me, especially as like Telegraph Hill, like one of the images that you saw on when I was reading it, of like the market gardens and the telegraph station on Telegraph Hill, that I really wanted children to be able to visualize in their heads that that is actually what Telegraph Hill used to look like. So that was definitely a really important image for me to put there.
Fantastic. We have another question from Ayo. What advice would you give for other aspiring writers?
I would just say do it because I was never expecting this to go where it did, and I was never expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. But if you have an aspiration to be a writer, I would say absolutely go for it and try your very hardest, because I think it was such an amazing experience, and it's actually really helped me build confidence in myself with my own writing. And so it was amazing. So I would just say do it.
Wonderful, wonderful to hear. And we've got a question from Chelsea. How do you feel this experience has supported your future aspirations? Do you feel it has changed your potential career choices?
I don't think it's changed my potential career choices, because I've always known from a young age that I've wanted to go into something environmental and something sciencey. But I do think that it has really helped support my future aspirations in like how I would deliver that to other people, and like giving me confidence to actually like try and make a difference in my own community, and like think about how like we can deliver these messages that are so important to younger people. So that's definitely changed certain future aspirations for me, in the sense that I really definitely know that I will want to focus on young people and helping encourage them to learn more about the environment. But I don't think it's changed my like career choice, in that I've always wanted to go into an environmental career.
Fantastic. And I've got another question from Nicola. Has it helped your confidence with writing?
Definitely, it has definitely helped my confidence with writing. English was never a strong point for me in school. I always struggled with it in certain aspects. It was always my lowest graded thing. And doing this book I never thought would be possible, and it has helped build my confidence so much with writing, especially because getting the tone right was quite difficult. So having practice with writing for different tones of writing, especially with trying to promote the book for a younger audience, definitely really helped me with my confidence in that.
Brilliant. I've got a question for you. We talked about language as well. So it's really interesting that, at primary school, the language that we use is slightly different to the language that we use at secondary school and beyond. But also in terms of language, when we think about eco-literacy, for example, and sustainability, some of these sort of come across as new terms, but they're very interdisciplinary. As you saw in your placement, you had interlinks between science, you had interlinks between history when you interviewed your grandma, for instance, so you had oral history in there. So how important do you think, when it comes to sustainability, how important do you think it's to have the language that is sort of appropriate for the level of understanding, and also the interlinks between different subjects? So there's two questions, as in the second question being that sustainability, do you think it's a standalone subject on its own, or through your experiences, do you think it's a subject that is interlinked? We've got English as interlinked language, history, social studies, geography, for instance. First question being how the importance of language and it being sort of level appropriate, and the second question being sustainability. Do you think it's a standalone subject, or it's very much sort of interdisciplinary?
To answer the first question, I definitely think that language is such an important, so important for presenting anything to do with the environment and sustainability, because obviously there's the science aspect of it, and it's obviously important to get that technically correct, but then there's also an aspect of it that you're presenting it to the public and you're presenting it to a certain audience, and the language you choose needs to be understood and not confusing in any way, because it's so important for people to understand more about this subject and actually want to read about it and not switch off because they don't understand a certain word because it's like too scientific. So I definitely think language is so important, and I definitely think it depends on the situation you're in. For example, like when I was doing the report for this, I used very different language to when I was writing the book. And I think that is like a really important distinction. And I think it's really important to have both whenever you're doing a project, because I really think it's like, I think it's so valuable for young people to be able to understand more about this. And to answer your second question, I definitely think that sustainability is such a broad topic that is covered in everything. And I think it's so important for it to be covered in everything. I think it's so important that English links to it and history links to it and science links to it and all of those other subjects. Because I think to work for a sustainable future, we really need to have that interlinking and to work together as a community and like throughout the whole thing. And I think that's definitely really important. So yeah.
Brilliant. And then kind of leading on from that, what kind of skills do you think you developed, you know, through the placement and the writing of the book, going through the different, you know, subjects, like for instance, like with the oral history, sort of interviewing your grandma, you know, that's those kind of skills, and then the scientific research, and then we had the STEMpoint poster and research to do, and we also took part in the European Climate Pact Youth Parliament as well. So throughout this whole process, when you were synthesizing the book, what kind of different skills do you think you gained, and how did you kind of develop them further?
I have definitely gained more confidence in public speaking skills, but more specific to the placement, I definitely learned a lot about restoration science and gaining those skills in that area, and like through like sampling skills and things like that enabled me to collect primary data, because all of that information that we learned in the placement built upon my A-levels in like biology and things like that, where we learn about this as well. So then to be able to practically do it in real life and actually have it have an impact in the way it has done is like really amazing. And I've definitely learned so many skills from that.
Fantastic, brilliant. And we're just going to open up the floor again. If you've got any further questions for Maia. Thank you so much for the questions that we've had already. Really interesting discussion. Do we have any? Yeah, sorry.
Hi everyone, hi Anna, hi Maia. I'm Julianne Law. I'm actually the project lead on the Research STEM programme, and it's not a question. I just wanted to thank Anna for her support this year, and congratulations, Maia. That book is absolutely amazing. Well done for all of your hard work this year. To see this come to life is absolutely fantastic for us. So I just wanted to say a huge congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julian. We're really supported. I think this placement itself and the book sort of highlights, you know, the different partnerships that we've had. So we've had partnership with Maia being a student, but we've had a lot of support from Maia's aunt, grandma, mother as well as the whole STEMpoint team as well. So different stakeholders kind of working together. And I think this book is a really nice synthesis of that, because we talk about heritage, we talk about geography, we talk about local areas, and now we have a global book launch. So it's really nice to kind of see those interlinks coming into play as well, from simply even from observation, you know, what Maia observed, what areas interested her in Telegraph Hill, and sort of choosing her site of focus and site of interest, for instance, and then really engaging with that to synthesize a book, and then hopefully, you know, we can carry it over into a series. We also have STEM Earth Guardian, so we've got a book coming out soon with Maia as a role model and her journey as well, to sort of inspire children to kind of look at the different pathways that they can take into STEM. And I think, you know, as also Deborah has written, Maia was very clear about what she wanted from her as an illustrator. She had a clear vision and communicated this very well. It's really nice to see somebody as young as Maia developing those skills at this stage between the critical junction before going off to university. And then for us at Heal Earth, for us, you're already an eco leader in progress. You know, you're able to kind of communicate your vision, you're able to work with different stakeholders, but it's really nice that we work together as a community or micro communities coming together and then looking at local areas and biodiversity. I've got a question for you, Maia, in terms of, before we sort of shortly conclude as well, in terms of local areas and restoration. I know you had some suggestions on that. Do you want to kind of share what you found? What do you think could be the way forward in terms of Telegraph Hill and the research that you did about the restoration?
Well, I did a lot of research about Telegraph Hill, like looking at its biodiversity and looking at the problems it faces. And I found that the two main problems in Telegraph Hill was like litter. And often I find this as a problem in London because people generally just like, you see, like I see the park as a clean area most of the time. But actually there's like litter everywhere. From like one loop of the park, I took photos of 104 like pieces of litter and things and was able to categorize that. And that was actually quite shocking to me. And especially whenever I walk around London now, like after I've done that, I'm seeing rubbish everywhere where I never used to see it before. So I think it's really eye-opening for me in that sense. And I definitely like thought that that was a major problem in the area that I wanted to address in the book, which is one of the themes of the book. And a second environmental issue that I thought like Telegraph Hill faced was air pollution, because if you look at Lewisham Borough and you look at the data that it has, then New Cross Gate and Telegraph Hill has some of the worst air quality in Lewisham, which is quite shocking to me because I always think of it as quite a green area, and it's definitely getting better because like the community is definitely stepping in and like trying to conserve the area, which is amazing. But it's definitely still a problem in comparison to other areas in Lewisham, which I was quite shocked about. But like one of the restoration parts that I was like looking at and was how biodiversity can be protected in our area, because our parks in Telegraph Hill are actually one of the like highest biodiversity areas in London. And if you look on like a map created by Green Space Information Centre for Greater London, then you can kind of see that it's ranked the highest it can be ranked. And so one of the like a couple of ways I came up with to protect the biodiversity was like that you can do actually locally, was one by like in trying to enhance the habitats by planting like a variety of native species to attract and support the local wildlife. Two, by reducing the like your own environmental impact and like trying to like encourage your friends and like family to reduce their environmental impact. And by this I mean like stuff like not littering and being mindful of your purchases and carbon footprint. And three, the third idea that I had was like by trying to advocate for local biodiversity through volunteering with local groups, especially in Telegraph Hill where the community is so strong. And there are so many local groups that you can get involved with and volunteer with, and try and help educate others. So that was definitely a main point for me because the biodiversity in this area is so like amazing.
Fantastic. Really love to hear. So you got an element of citizen science there as well, and sort of putting everything together is really, really wonderful. Got a message from Chelsea who was all super proud of the hard work that brought you to this amazing moment, Maia. Your achievements inspire all of us in STEMpoint and Research STEM team. Can't wait to see where this journey leads next. Congratulations again, Maia, and a huge thank you to Heal Earth for supporting STEMpoint with those amazing placements. Thank you, Chelsea, and hopefully, you know, it will sort of continue this. I've got a question for Maia and Deborah, and then we'll see if we've got other questions as well. How does it feel, or how do you feel about the impact that your work will now be making into sort of generating those conversations starting off with children who will start to think about the local area, but also it might also help them develop those habits through the eco-literacy and sustainable storytelling. So Maia and Deborah, how do you feel about that?
For me, at least, it feels like incredibly surreal. But I'm so like proud of the work that I've done, and I'm like really happy that it's having the impact, or like will have the impact that it is likely to have in the sense of my local area, especially with like the primary schools there. So that's like amazing for me, and I'm so happy and proud of myself for that. And it does feel like incredibly surreal and kind of crazy that it's happened this way. So yeah.
I'm also very proud of you, Maia. I think it's an amazing achievement, and I'm very grateful that you included me in it, and I've really enjoyed doing it with you.
Fantastic. And what would be both of your messages for the future, or for the community at large through the book, or through your own opinions of environmental conservation and restoration?
For me, like a major takeaway that I would love people to take away from this is to like look really closely at their own local environment, and like start actually caring and learning about actual what local species they have and what local species they can support and help to support. Because often when we talk about like environmental issues, we often think of it as a faraway thing, or like happening in only like certain places, or we don't really see the impacts it's having to our own local environment. And I definitely think it's really important to take the time and notice that, and just like sit and maybe like watch like your own local area and how like the different species interact and things, because I think that's such an important thing to do and to focus on.
And I'm kind of hoping that because it's a children's book, and possibly like adults will be reading it to their children or with their children or having those discussions, that it's not just the children that will take away from it, it's the adults that will hopefully make a change.
Brilliant, fantastic. Thank you so much to both of you. Do we have any further questions, or any discussions, or any thoughts? Well, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you very much, Maia and Deborah, for the fantastic work that you did on the book. We will have a follow-up event when the Earth Guardian book for Maia comes out, so we'll be sure to send an invitation for that. We're all incredibly proud of you, Maia. You've done really well, and even through the book launch, you've done fantastically well. You know, seeing that you've just come out of a Duke of Edinburgh gold placement, so congratulations on that achievement as well. Really proud of you. So and to mum and grandma and aunt for the supportive role that they've played, and STEMpoint in how the community comes together to co-create. So incredibly grateful for that. We're concluding the event, and yeah, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch with the next book launch of Maia that should be coming out soon as well. And yeah, really proud of you, Maia. Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much to absolutely everybody who has helped me with this and supported me through this. It's absolutely amazing that I've been able to have this opportunity, and I'm so grateful for it. So thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming.